Hello, everybody. Aaron back with you. I'm so excited to bring this podcast to you today because this was something that I just kind of randomly threw out to this person, and she was literally within a day said, absolutely, I want to be a part of this. And I was so shocked and I was so thrilled, and I was just glad that she had given us some of her time to share her story and share some of her knowledge when it comes to mental health and suicide. So today on the podcast, we have Ginger Zee. Ginger Zee is the chief meteorologist at ABC News, author of the books Chasing Helicity and her autobiography, Natural Disaster, I Cover Them, I Am One. And, of course, she is a mental health advocate. This was one that I was, not going to lie, very nervous to do because she's a very prominent figure in the mental health community. She definitely has gone through so much in her life, and even just this little podcast, it only shares just a snippet of her life story. But even so, we are very, very thankful that she had chosen us to do that. Thank you so much again. And you're really going to like this podcast, everybody. Let's roll. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a wonderful, wonderful guest that I am so happy she decided to do this for us. Her name is Ginger Zee. She is the ABC News chief meteorologist, a New York Times best-selling author, and a mental health advocate. So, Ginger, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This every time I get to talk about it and share my story so that I can hear other people's stories is a good day for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I love that you are so open about your mental health. And it's such an inspiration to a lot of people. I see it all the time, just from you do these interviews with people, and it resonates so much with them.
Yeah, no, I think I've been lucky in that I had a great model in my mom early on in being kind of a transparent person, even if we didn't know what it was that we're being transparent about. And I had that model, but I don't think that I listened to it, or I almost fought it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so knowing that now, going back to being honest with myself and honest then with others and transparent with others, how healing that has been, number one for me, but also for other people, only encourages me to continue it. And it's strange. I like to bring up during this time, I don't know one person who has not either been introduced to a new stressor or to the extent of anxiety, depression, or perhaps had a suicide attempt. This time in the last couple of months is different for the whole world. And it's one of the only times I think we all have this strange level of uncertainty, not just with will we get sick or not, if we get sick, what happens, economic uncertainty. There's so many layers to this that I think every person is touched by. I saw the analogy that we're all in the same storm, just in different boats. And I thought that was really well said, but it is one of the only times that we can all kind of come together and say, you know what, we're all fighting through this. We're all doing the same thing. So it only made my experiences feel like I had to share them during this time. So first, we were sick with coronavirus early. We didn't even, this is like before the world even shut down, didn't realize until it did shut down. Then we knew we had it and couldn't get a test. And there was so many like back and forths and talk about like not knowing what was going to happen. And so I was a little bit delayed, I think, in realizing the other parts of this, like in realizing what it meant for potentially my business, what for my career, for my family, for food, for all that stuff. I was too sick to think about it. And then I woke up and was like, oh my gosh. So it hit me very hard and very quickly, as it did so many other people, and everybody reacts to it. But it was the first time in my last 8-9 years of true healing from after I was hospitalized that I had a dark morning. And I used to have dark mornings a lot. I wouldn't say it was, I used to call them like the shades would go black and they would close. And on the mornings or the days that I wanted to take my life, they were closed all the way. This wasn't closed. It was more gray, I would call it. And I hadn't woken up gray in a long time. And So it's funny because I've been practicing for that moment. I had been healing for that moment. And that moment I woke up that way, I let it settle in. I let myself feel it. It didn't go away. I could see it. It's like a monster that kind of starts growing toward me, the depression part.
Right.
And I just announced in my basement studio, I see you. I hear you. I see you. I know what you're trying to do. Like I said it out loud.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful already. I hadn't really been able to do that in my darkest times prior because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the real therapy and help that I've had since then. And I was amazed at how quickly that kind of pushed it down for a little bit. But of course, it started growing back. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to write this down. I started writing and jotting notes down. I texted my husband, I texted my mom, and I texted my therapist. And I said, I don't know what's happening, but I see it. And I haven't seen it in years. And they all, responded, and you get that team support start going. And then I said, you know what? It's time. I'm going to share the notes that I just jotted down this morning to my followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
I was floored by the response. I was so amazed because a lot of these people have read my book or know that I've been in this place of healing. I think it was really nice for them to feel or see that it's not like you're cured all the time. Even though I say it a lot, it was good to see that. So that they knew that when they had a gray or even dark day, that's okay, and I think that those do come. So that's what this time has been for me. It's kind of a reminder of how powerful that can be.
And being so vulnerable right now, it just opens the doors to so many opportunities for other people to feel vulnerable as well. And how powerful that is, especially coming from a prominent figure saying, look, I'm not perfect. This is what I deal with day in and day out. And I can only understand how that message was perceived by so many of your followers, because it is a hard time, plain and simple. It's such a horrible time, but I love the fact that we can all stay positive about our experiences and say, like, look, this is something that I'm dealing with. I need help, plain and simple. And it's amazing that you're reaching out for that.
I will say though, I think the next level though, and I think you're right that I'm seeing it even in the last couple of years after writing my book, the number of people who are willing to divulge that they have anxiety, that they have depression, that they suffer with bipolar. It's amazing how open people have become. So I think that we are getting there pretty quickly on, letting go of the stigma of saying it. But I always say this, and I think it's the most important part. We are nowhere near past the stigma of the action that it takes to heal. And that's the one that I always want to focus in when I do anything like this is, okay, so you said it, now what? And the now what and the reaction of other people. I would love to get to the point when I checked myself into a mental health hospital, that sentence, I don't think it needs to become mainstream, but it needs to be accepted and it needs to be treated just like I checked myself into alcohol rehabilitation, because I think people react very positively. I mean, don't we, as a society, if someone goes to drug or alcohol rehab, we say, well, good for them.
Right? Absolutely.
And I think if we say they check themselves into the psych ward, they go, ooh, okay. Like it comes with, very different reaction. That's the part I think we need to work on, because from my experience, I needed that. And I think a lot more people than think they need it. Because when I got that check-in at the hospital, my mom had been telling me for years, you need inpatient therapy. And I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. I was resisting it, but I still had the opportunity, the financial ability, and the support to do it. So when I finally did do it, I believe it saved my life. And it's because you go to the hospital when you have a broken leg, and then they heal your leg to what they can, and then they send you to a specialist. That's what they do for your brain and for your mental health. They take you in, they stabilize you. But here's where we let go. And that's where we don't go to the specialist, or we don't follow up with the specialist, and so your leg is not going to work as well as it would have. Your mental health will not be as strong if you didn't get that specialist. So this time when I went to the hospital, I had therapists before, but I did more of the thing where it's like, oh, what does my insurance cover? And let me just pick one random out of the list, right? Which is good. It's a start, but it wasn't what I needed specifically. This guy who I got hooked up with through Columbia when I was in the hospital specializes in what I needed. And I'll tell you, that, and, you know, I think we're just a good fit as a patient and doctor.
Hmm.
That has been the biggest level of healing, combined with writing my book and telling everybody for the first time ever, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
The ultimate people pleaser is going to let you know she's not perfect. And so those two things have made me as healed as I can be.
It took me a long time to go to therapy for my depression and anxiety as well. I was very resistant to it. I didn't think I was going to find anybody that was a good fit, like kind of like the same, you know, I was hesitant. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I found somebody and I feel so much better doing it. And it's amazing to have people say like, yeah, I go to my therapist. That stigma part doesn't go away too much, or that's gone away more, but you're right. You're right. It's not, if I check myself in, people get that kind of thought, and that's not. And so how do you think we can break that stigma of that specific incident?
Well, starting with therapy, because I think we're closer on that, like you said, I always tell people my therapist is my personal trainer for my mind. If I didn't go to my personal trainer, which I'm, again, lucky to have the opportunity to do, my body wouldn't look like this, right? I wouldn't be able to feel this way. More importantly, and as a basis of what my body is able to do, my mind needs to be trained by an expert, just like a personal trainer of the body is, you know. So these people are trained. So if you look at it like that, and then I can't go to the personal trainer every day,
right?
You know, but I can do meditation, which I look at as like the sit-ups or the push-ups for my brain. I look at the skills and the tools. I look at journaling, gratitude journaling, or just journaling in general as one of my treadmills, you know, to get my cardio in. And so if we started treating all of the preventative medicine of our brain that way, how astounding the difference would be. And then sleep. I think that's the one that gets so left behind. It's chicken and egg with anxiety, depression, or any mental health illness.
Right.
And of course, there's the biologic and the schizophrenic, and, you know, that's definitely separate and can't be fixed by sleep.
Right.
But a lot of these other ones get left. People forget the baseline that's going to change things, and they don't pay close enough attention. For me, mine was narcolepsy. I had no idea that I had it. A lot of people have narcolepsy or sleep apnea and have no idea. And those things impact your mental health without you even realizing. Medications for some things, you know, there's so many things we could look at. But I think those are the actions that I think that as a society, we need to be not just like, okay, somebody says to you, yep, I've been suffering with depression. It shouldn't end there. It shouldn't just end like, okay, well, thank you for telling me.
Right.
You know, like it should go to the next. Okay, what are we gonna do to make this better? And,
exactly.
And it's a personal responsibility, and then it's a intimate family friend responsibility, I think.
I think most people generally, if somebody was to admit that or to say, I'm feeling suicidal, I would have to say 99% of the population is saying, okay, what can I do to help you? People want you to succeed. I can't see why there would be a reason to say, no, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. I can't see our society being that way, especially anymore. And, you know, it's so amazing to see that you talk about this so openly, and it's wonderful. And you can see how you've succeeded in life, and you're so open with like your family on your Instagram and on your Twitter and stuff. And it's really a positive thing. And the one thing that I always wanted to ask you, especially when I saw all these awesome family posts with your kids, how will you talk to your children about mental illness when they grow up?
So leading up to that morning that I had woken up gray, you know, the boys are 4 and 2, so they're a little young for anything explanation wise, but Adrian, the 4-year-old, is very with it, and he's really in tune. And unfortunately, a lot like me, he's extremely empathetic. He's a total people pleaser from the start. I mean, apparently this kid just wants everybody to be happy. And so he started seeing me withdrawing that week. I started saying things to my husband, which were triggers. I started saying things like, hey, does anybody want to not do anything at all today except drink a bottle of wine and smoke a pack of cigarettes, sit on the back deck and do nothing? Like, I was joking. It wasn't a joke. You know, it was me reaching for my out. And my out used to be that when I was, and I should have known that was the feeling. Of course, I never did any of that because I'm a mother and I have these kids to, you know, but I wanted to.
Of course.
So that should have been my first eye opener. And my husband too, it's like he didn't know what to do with that statement because I kept saying it. And he was like, I don't know. And so during that time though, I wasn't saying I wanted a bottle of wine and a pack of smokes in front of my son, but he started feeling me different. And he's so in touch with people. That next day when I was having another moment, I just was meditating and sitting outside, and then I was just trying to like center. He came out and he said, "What's wrong?" And I was crying. And I said, "Well, Mommy's sick." And then he said, "What do you have? Like, what's wrong? Like, does your throat hurt?" Or does, we had just had coronavirus. So I was like, what part of you is wrong? And I said, "No, my brain hurts, and my heart hurts, and my soul hurts." And I was trying to explain it. And I think it was definitely a little much, but I think if we start early, like, don't at all, also be transparent with our kids. You don't have to say, "I don't want to live today," probably a little bit much for a
Right.
4-year-old. But to explain to them that you don't feel well and you're sick is the start. And that's the societal difference. If we would have said that from the start, instead of saying that person is crazy or psycho, or using the words that make it sound separate from sick, I think that would help. Sick means something is wrong and that could be helped,
Yes.
and I think it gives hope to everybody involved. And it also says it's not going to be here forever, because most people don't stay sick forever. So I think that those little things are what I'm starting to do with the kids, and I will. And my husband and I talk a lot about this, because he had severe OCD, and not just personality disorder, like the actual disorder, to the point of injuring himself and really impacting his life for a good 10, 15 years. And then I had anorexia and depression. And so we always talk about, what will we do if they present with something like this?
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is, first, we're ready for it. We're waiting for it. We're prepared. We know what the right steps would have been in our lives. And this is not a knock on our parents, because I think the world wasn't there yet.
Right.
When he was having OCD, nobody knew or talked about what that was, unless you were in like an inner circle of some pretty elite health experts.
Yeah.
Generally, OCD was not talked about in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And so his parents did not know what they had in front of them. They just thought he was stalling, being annoying, doing, like all of the things that
Right.
you think. So I think we're going to be much more sensitive to any of those things. And we also know that there are huge environmental factors that created the bedrock for both of us to have those control issues. And that was both of our parents divorcing at the exact same age in our lives. And so that rocking of our center, and we're not saying, "Oh, we can't get divorced because we won't let our kids have," but there's just different going about it. And I think we're just, so first we are aware, and then second, I know where to go. Luckily in my journey, this is what it has taught me. I know what to do next. It's not going to answer everything. I don't think I'm going to be the perfect mental health mom, but I'm sure going to be a lot better than what I was able, or what my parents were able to give me, and what Ben's parents were able to give him. So we think a lot about that. And I always try, because Ben gets really worried. Everything he's like looking, and I'm like, he's 4. It's okay. He's lining up cars. It's normal.
Right. Right. Because I have a 2-year-old and a 8-month-old. And before my wife and I had kids, I was so worried about, I'm going to pass on this anxiety. I'm going to pass on this depression. I don't want to do this. And my therapist basically sat me down and said, "Look, they might get this, but you have the coping skills now to help them through it." And I think that was just like the one trigger, or the one thing I needed to say, that's okay if they have this, but you can help them through it. And that's exactly it.
Yeah. And I should say, for both of us, and this is something that I didn't lead with and should have, because it should be the lead, it is up to us. It's up to us to keep working on ourselves, so that is not projected on them, because that is the one thing that you can do even without knowing. And I know I've done to a certain extent. You do heighten their anxiety, and this pandemic is the perfect example. Right. The way that you speak around them about it, the way that they're more worried and unsure than any of us could be, because they don't know all the realities or not realities. They can only cook up ideas that spiral and spiral, and they don't talk to anybody about it. So it's like efforting the communication on the front end, especially right now, and then making sure you're taking care of your mental health, so that it is not making them live in a world of anxiety or a world of depression or a
Hmm.
world, because those worlds will become their norm, and
Yeah.
they'll almost, it's not that it has to be genetic, it can totally be environmental. And then I think that creates, and a lot of times you'll see that in families, right? One parent is a flooding emotional mess, and then the child becomes an introverted, people pleasing, depressive.
Yeah.
And then the next generation is like, I would really love some sort of reaction from you. I need some sort of, emotion or emotive. And so that's the part I'm trying to work on, because I had that experience from the flooding to my introverted people pleaser, and so what it did to me was made me colder,
Hmm.
inherently just tougher to love. And so I'm trying to make sure that my boys grow up and don't feel that way, so that they're not like going total 180 again. Like, let's bring it back to 90 and
Right.
in the middle.
That's awesome though, because like you said, you focus on your family first, and that's so positive. And I'm so happy to hear that, I'm kind of not the only one that had those reservations, or that has those reservations with kids, because that is a reality that parents face. Either if you don't fix yourself, your kids are going to see that, plain and simple. The other thing that was kind of something on my mind as I wanted to talk to you about was you bring this positive vibe to people, even just, even if somebody saw you, in the morning watching the news. It's amazing because you're so uplifting and powerful, and people resonate with that. And even in their worst situations, they're still looking up to you. And how does the pressure of having that thought, how do you deal with that? How do you have to stay positive all the time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I would say I don't outwardly think about the impact on other people necessarily, except that it goes back to the one part that was so great about how I grew up. And both my parents were very big on the smile. And this is a really bittersweet subject for me, because my smile has gotten me a lot, right? My positivity and any optimism can be almost faked until, through my
Mm-hmm.
smile. And whether it was in competitive cheerleading, or it was once I get into television, even when I was teaching TV to my meteorology students at Valparaiso when I was an adjunct professor, my smile and teaching them about that and how powerful it can be was wonderful. However, I think that in my darkest states, my smile was the worst mask, and that was the thing that allowed me to not be honest with other people, and definitely wasn't being honest with myself. So it's like, it's bitter to me, because it's like, oh gosh, a smile shouldn't be there. I was looking through photos. My grandmother and my dad grew up in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, and they don't smile in photos. And so I started getting obsessed with, when did smiling become the norm in photographs? Like, because it didn't, you think about black and white photos of times. And I started looking through the history and what people think. And a lot of it's attributed to advertisement in the 50s and 60s here. Because first of all, back in the day, it was in the style of portrait. And portrait, you had to sit there for a long time. You weren't going to hold a smile for about 3 hours while somebody painted you. And then when people started taking photographs, the photographs took a long time. So you weren't going to hold a smile. Once the technology caught up with making it an actual snapshot, then Kodak had a whole campaign, I think it was in the 50s, that was like, something about, you get our camera, you smile. Like, it's right. Like connected. And so the advertisement started showing only smiling people. And that, even in high school yearbooks, there was all this history, is what started changing what a photograph should show. And what's funny is I think we're trying to go back a little bit to the candidness, to the reality, to not, I don't think we're going to get to a point where a group of friends get together and just do straight face. Like,
right.
But
that would be a very weird selfie.
Right. And so, but could we get to the point where they show what they're really feeling? And then I started really thinking about what that means. And so on TV, what I attribute the optimism to, and if I'm not having, even on that gray morning, I was working. I don't think I was quite as smiley. I think I was focused though. And I'm lucky, I'm on for 30 seconds, a minute. I can focus it for that time and then I'll let go. I don't know how people who are on for longer do that.
Right.
But that is that's always my goal, because that's the other thing is, as much as my mom was like to a fault transparent, like someone at the grocery store is like, oh, you pass someone, hi, how are you? She'd be like, oh, well, my knee and I had surgery. It's like, what? I didn't want to know that. A little much. Like, there's got to be somewhere in between that we can all live, and be safe and have a great place and feel like we're living our authentic best self, you know. But I also think that I've just become more positive in general because of all this. I mean, I couldn't have done this in my years in Chicago. I definitely could not have done this in Flint. And environmentally, I've just made so many strides in my mental health that I have been rewarded, I think, by allowing someone to love me, finally having a partner that is a partner, you know, and allowing that in, because I tried really hard not to let it in, and he was very persistent. Yeah. And I'm lucky he was very loyal and stuck around, because I don't know that I deserved that even, but I do know now that I deserve it. It's like funny to make fun of yourself, but no, I do. That's the whole point. And then, you know, having this life I never ever thought was possible. I always knew my career was going well and I could put all of my energy and my smiles into that. I did not do that for my own personal life. And so now to know that you can do it all, you know, not perfectly every day, but you can, is pretty special.
That's a wonderful way to look at it. And like I said, I see it. I see people that write to you and say, you know, oh, thanks for being so positive today. It helped me through, you know, those are the things that give people hope. And that's amazing. So I try obviously not to ask too many questions, but I do ask one on this podcast all the time, and you can take this how you want. What's your advice for anyone that's ever been in your situation or has resonated with something that you said today?
So I think, just because we didn't talk too much about it, but I think it's the most important part is suicide. And I think that I like to talk about it because it's something people don't talk about a lot. So being frank about that is important, and it's important in yourself. Number one, if you are a family member, I get that question a lot, like, what do I do if I have this person in my life who says this to me, or gives me that information? I always say, take it seriously. Yeah. Like, not one time, even if they've said it 100 times in a row and then never did anything about it, take it seriously every single time, because they do mean it. Nobody says that without actually meaning it. Somewhere in their soul, they mean it. And that can accumulate. It can snap one day. It can come out of nowhere, seemingly. So I think take it seriously. Help them, and I mean, like, physically help them get to the place they need to be safe. Yep. And it's not about, oh, I would regret it if I didn't. You also have to have a part of the team who is tough love enough to say, we are here for so long, but there's people who do this for years, right? And they start to, you have to take care of yourself in being that team member too, and not allow this to totally be absorbed in that other person's, whatever the case, mental health case might be. But for the person who's in this, I always wonder, if I were going to go back, if I could go back to myself that day before my suicide attempts, or that morning of my suicide attempts, could I say anything or do anything to stop me? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I have that power. And I hope that relieves a lot of other people who feel like they lost someone or that they could have done something. I can't with full confidence say yes. However, the reason I still talk about this stuff, and the reason I want everyone to take it seriously and to pay attention, especially within themselves, if they start having any inkling or any plans or any feelings of, well, it would be a lot easier if I weren't here. You have to go get help. There are people, there are professionals. That's just like breaking your arm. It is just like that. There's a little part of your brain that is stressed or broken. It's not broken, because that's a bad word to use, but it's it's not in its best state, and you can help it. So if I could go back, the one thing I would probably say to myself those mornings is those black shutters that are totally closed, that are telling you there is no other answer, because I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about anyone. I just wanted to die. That's how severe it was. And luckily I wasn't successful in that, and I have the opportunity to tell this story. But if I think about, like, if my boys had that feeling, the one thing I would say to that person is, this blackness is only because there is such light. The clouds don't last forever. It's not how the atmosphere works. I'm a scientist and a meteorologist, I know this. And it's not how life works. So that blackness could last a week, and it could, in really bad cases, last a year. But I'm telling you, life is so long, and this is a snapshot. So if you can pull yourself to that one snapshot and realize tomorrow is going to be different, no matter what.
That's a perfect message to give to people. And I'm so happy that you are here to share your story. If people want to get in touch with you, people want to, follow you, how do they do so? I'm assuming mostly all on the socials, but how do they do so?
Yeah. Great. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm Ginger_ZEE. And on Facebook, I'm GingerZTV. So that's the best way. I've got a website that's ginger-z.com. Sorry. That has everything all together.
Totally fine. Like I said, I thank you so much for your time. And again, thank you for always pushing the boundary to make suicide a frontline issue, to make mental health a frontline issue, because it's more needed than ever. So from the bottom of our heart at the organization, thank you so much for that.
Thank you guys. Thanks for the work you do.
No matter the storm, it never rains forever. It can't, and it won't. That's a quote from Ginger's book, Natural Disasters. I cover them. I am one. I was very, very happy that she gives some of her time to really share her message and to really talk about these issues, because they do affect everybody. And it is an issue that until we talk about it, it will not go away. And I like that we alluded to that in the podcast, that you can say it, but you have to act on it, and you have to really consciously try to act on it. So again, check out her books, Natural Disaster, I cover them, I am one, and her other series of books, Chasing Helicity. Please keep doing the great work that you're doing. And again, thank you again for taking the time to come and help us out. Did you like the podcast today? I hope you did, because I really did. If you couldn't tell, I was only a little nervous. But share, follow, subscribe, any platform that you listen to the podcast on. We're on iTunes, Podbean, Spreaker, you name it, we're on it. If we're not, let me know, because then I'll get us on it. Like, share, follow, anything. It helps the podcast. Let us know. We definitely need that feedback. And if you like the podcast and it definitely gives you something, rate us. Let us know how we're doing. We need that feedback, because it's very important that we keep giving you quality content. And I need to know from you as the listener that we're giving you what you want. You can visit our organization on the social pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Twitch. All are at Center for Suicide Awareness in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. Our website's under construction right now. It's kind of a mess, but we have a new one coming up real soon, so stay tuned for that. It looks pretty awesome, and I'm really excited to get it out there, because it has a lot more updated content. Do you have questions, comments, concerns about the podcast? You can email me directly, Aaron, Aaron, at centerforsuicideawareness.org. I run this podcast for you. This is something that I kind of started on a whim for the organization, and I'm really happy that it's taking off. Never in a million years would I have thought that I got the opportunity to talk to so many people and to really learn about their stories and to see how their lives are affected, just like mine has been as well, from my mental illnesses. It's just really refreshing to see that people can stand together and say, this is a problem and it needs to be fixed. I just really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I kind of think it's a dream sometimes that I get to talk with so many people that are changing the world, and they might not even know that they're doing it. But little steps need to be taken for giant leaps to happen. It's very nice to see that stigma going away. Slowly but surely it is. But we have to keep doing our part to make that happen. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for allowing me to do this every single week. It is a blessing to me, and I am very thankful that I have this opportunity. So thank you. As I say every single week, be kind to one another. Just be kind. We need it more than ever. Be kind. You are loved and you are important. And remember, you are not alone. Take care, everybody. Bye.